Okay, I am going to hopefully show you how to use your iPad with Autodesk Sketchbook, and for me, a cheap stylus that I got off the internet to start your fashion illustrations, and hopefully this will be a little bit clearer doing it this way. Sorry if you can hear my cats in the background, they are very needy. So to start with, I'm going to show you how to use kind of a template base, so maybe a drawing, a model, something like that. So we're going to use the toolbar at the top of the page, and we're going to scroll along until we get the little scene of the mountains with the little plus symbol at the top of it. We are going to press that, and I have already saved some images that I want to use as my basis. So I just searched like fashion model poses, and I'm going to use one where my model is wearing like a leotard or a swimming costume or something like that, or underwear, just so that there's enough for me to, enough sort of skin, enough body to work with, so that it's not just drawing on existing clothing. So I'm going to put her in and position her to the size I want, and I can just use my fingers or my stylus to resize her. Then I'm just going to click done and go back to my original page. So she is there, and she is looking very striking, very confident. What I'm going to do now is use this toolbar that I've got on the right hand side of the page, and I'm just going to move her below the existing layer. All right, now that means that she's right at the back, so whatever I do will be on top of her. If I want to hide her, I can just click the little thing that looks like an eye, and that will put a line through the eye, which looks quite painful, and that just makes her disappear, and then I can bring her back again. Now, I don't really want her to be that visible while I'm drawing, so I'm going to click her layer again, and I'm going to reduce the opacity, okay, so that she's just almost like a ghost that I can use to draw on. And I don't really need all of this slightly distracting outside bit either. Now, you can leave that in. Obviously, we're going to get rid of her come the end, but I find it a little bit off-putting to my eyes. So I'm going to select the eraser tool. Now I can open up the eraser and change the size and the density of the flow using these tools, and I can go into the advanced ones and I can change the pressure and all that kind of thing, but we're not that worried about that for now. So what I'm going to use as a shortcut is these little scrolly things at the side. All right, so I can change the size, as you can see, using that. I can change how heavy it is. So that's how dense the actual eraser is. I'm really sorry if you can hear that cat. He's so annoying, I just can't even. So I'm going to make it quite big, and that meant keeping on her layer, I can just erase all of that background. Really easy. Okay? Now, if I want to, I can also zoom in and get a little bit more detailed here, just to improve the quality of the line around the form. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for now. The next thing I'm going to do is start on another layer. Okay, so right hand toolbar again. We've got all our different layers, and I'm going to select that layer that we moved earlier. All right. That is going to be my layer that I'm going to start the drawing on, and I'm just going to do an initial outline. All right, so I'm going to use the pencil tool. At the moment it's set to a kind of standard pencil size, so 1.5. Opacity's on full. I want it to be a nice, crisp, clear line. I'm going to choose the grey. The standard one I use is this 100. And that is a kind of standard pencil colour. And that just gives me a nice, crisp line. All right. Now, you could start quite loose, quite flowy. Could just do kind of an outline, whatever you want. I'm just going to follow the basic curves of her body because I can come back to it a little bit more detail later. Going to give her a few features. She doesn't need to be heavily detailed because again we can work back into that later, but it does help me to understand where her face actually is. This little hat thing is weird. I'm not bothered about that, so I'm going to give her a bit of sort of loose wavy hair, and I'm going to sort out what on earth I just did to her face there. I don't know what's going on here. So I'm going to sort that out. Just give her a bit more of an actual jawline and some cheekbones. She's probably got an ear kicking around here somewhere. Maybe a bit more hair. Okay, so then, and I can just use the undo function as well at the top if I'm not happy with anything. I can give her some collarbones. And then I think I've basically got that form. So I've got that shape. So I can check it just by hiding our original image. Okay, now given that I'm doing a fashion illustration, I can also make it a little bit more exaggerated. So the beauty of fashion illustration is that it doesn't always have to be completely, it doesn't have to be perfect. It also doesn't have to be realistic, which is my personal favourite thing about fashion illustration. So I love my drawings to have completely ridiculous, elongated, over-the-top legs. That one's really weird though. And again, I can just delete it. So I'm going to give her a ridiculous elongated leg. And then this one as well. So she's going to have these really mad long legs. I could give her really long arms if I wanted. So I could really expand on this kind of really over the top, really exaggerated form, which is always quite fun. All right, so now I've got her basic shape laid out. What I'm going to do is add in another layer, okay? And that will give me an opportunity just to add a little bit of colour to her form. So again, using the colour tool, so to pick a colour, now you can either choose from a colour wheel, so I can choose whatever I wanted, I can go all over the place here, I can choose the tone, like the depth of tone, whether it's light, dark, in between, or you can choose from the Copic range. Now I love Copic pens, so this is the dream, and I know that the skirt I'm bringing in is going to be a kind of light pinky colour. So I'm going to choose something that will complement that. So either a pink or a purple, or I could go to the opposite, the complementary colours, and use something like a blue or a yellow. I think a blue might be quite fun. Maybe like a baby blue. So I'm going to try this one to start with. And then I'm going to use my favourite tool, which is the airbrush tool, and it's this one here that looks a bit like the Tin Man's head. And in order to use that, I'm going to zoom in on her leotard, and I want it to be quite big, but I don't want it to be very opaque. Okay, so I want a really light wash of colour to start with, and you'll see why I do that in a second. So I'm just going to go in with this sort of lovely light wash of colour, and just in a very rough shape. And now what I can do is, and make sure you are working on that top layer, not on the drawn layer. Then I can shrink the size. I can start to bring it into the edges, and you'll see the airbrush actually creates a depth of colour as you layer. So it is like layering colour on top of colour. So I'm going to try a skin tone, and I want her to be, I don't need an awful lot because I'm just trying to sort of suggest skin, the idea of skin. Okay, so now the fun bit. Now I've added some colour, I can add in my skirt. So let's bring her back to the centre of the screen and find my image. Okay, so I've already downloaded it, and I've downloaded like a sample. It's a skirt sample. Well, it's a fabric sample basically. And I want it to look like a sort of swooshy skirt. So I think I want it about there. Maybe like that. I can flip it if I want to. But I quite like it like that, actually. So I'm going to leave it there. So I'm going to press done. And then what I can do is, again, I can reduce the opacity so it's sort of see-through-ish. And I can start to remove the bits that I don't really want. So again, using my eraser tool, I can remove the kind of extra bits that I'm not keen on. I want it to look like it's kind of kicking out from the side. So it's flowing down here. It's kind of clinging her leg. But then almost, I'd say, low-waisted. Maybe we could put a little waistband in there as well. So let's try the pencil again. We'll go with a sort of pinky tone. We can create a waistband. And that could be opaque as well, or it could be translucent. So that's really, because I've got the opacity down on the actual layer. So I can create a waistband of sorts for that skirt. Okay, now obviously there's loads of other things that I can do with that from this point forward. So I'm going to try and add some highlights here. It's taking a while to show up. Yeah, there we go. So I can add tone again, I can add definition, I can change the shape of the skirt if I want to. So actually what I could do to make it look possibly more realistic with the pleats, I could follow one of the pleats out and then erase the rest of it, which makes it look more like it's kind of swooshing out from the side. Now what I would want to do here is maybe shrink down the size of my eraser just to get that slightly crisper edge to make it look more like a real piece of fabric. But those like nitty-gritty details are the kind of thing that ideally I want you to be working out for yourselves. But you can see the difference between this little bit here and the rest of it. So that is a crash course in using an iPad for this. Have a little go and send me what you end up with. Okay.